doing? All right, how you doing? All is well.
How's everybody doing this evening? What's going on, Coach?
All is well. How you doing, bro?
I'm blessed. I can't complain.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yes, sir. Everybody, today is Hump Day. Um, those of you probably just getting off of work or just winding down. Thank you for listening to us. We're going to talk about a little bit of HBCU football and what happened this past weekend regarding the NFL as well. Coach went to the LSU versus Cleveland game, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he saw. Of course, we knew Southern was more than likely was going to lose that game, but as far as HBCU and the SWAC, he's going to give us his perspective on what he saw, on which players will do their thing in the SWAC versus a powerhouse like LSU.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. First of all, salute to the amazing LDBC, the Lions Den boxing community. I'm Coach 67 Sports TV. Uh, for everybody out there listening, you can follow me at Coach 67 Sports TV on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on TikTok. Uh,
Yes, sir.
like the subscribe to the channel, click the videos, comment in the comment section, all the other good stuff. All right.
You couldn't out, Coach. Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right. Before break down the game, I just got a brand new team yesterday because the school where I am, I didn't have enough players to have a team. So I got a brand new team yesterday. Today was our second day of practice. So, just a little bit of a, different situation for me. I'm back into it. So, that's but in terms of game, it's respected. Uh,
You couldn't out again, Coach.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes,
All right,
sir.
all right, all right. So,
Yeah, guys, Coach having a little bit of audio difficulties. But like I was saying, LSU basically smashed Southern. Southern.
they needed. Hello?
Yeah, you just came back. You cut out for a little bit, and then you just came back on.
In fact, bro, look, let me rejoin. Let me log off and let me rejoin.
All right, sure.
All right.
All right, guys. So just want to give you just for HBCU scoreboard till just till Coach come back. North Dakota beats North Carolina A&T 43-3. Austin, PA beats Mississippi Valley 41-0. South Carolina State beats Bethune-Cookman 33-9. James Madison beats Norfolk State 63-7. UCLA beats Alabama State 45-7. Florida A&M beats Albany State, 23-13. North Carolina Central beats Winston-Salem State Skunks on that basically 41-0. Division II program. Delaware beats Delaware State 35-9. North Texas beat Texas Southern 59-27. They tried to put up a little fight, but North Texas was too much. Jackson State outlasts Tennessee State 16-3. Tulane beats Alcorn State 52-0. Hampton beats Tuskegee 42-10. Towson beats Morgan State 29-21. South Florida beats Howard 42-20. Troy beats Alabama A&M 38-17. That was a pretty good game, but Troy had the deeper depth. Grambling beats Northwestern State 47-21. Arkansas Pine Bluff beats North American, kills them 76-3. And like we just said, LSU beats Southern 65-17. And lastly, Abilene Christian beats Fairview A&M 21-13. So those are the scores that happened this past weekend, or I should say this past week. Sports football for the SWAC, of course, in the East. Jackson State is leading. And the western part of the SWAC right now, Prairie View is A&M is also on the top. So Jackson 2 is 2-0 in the east side of the SWAC, Eastern Conference of the SWAC, and Prairie View A&M is 1-1 in the Eastern Conference. In the western side of the SWAC. In the MEAC, North Carolina Central is 2-0. It's undefeated. It's going to be interesting. We have Coach back.
Can you hear me, bro?
Yes, sir.
All right. Again, salute to the amazing LDBC, Lions Den boxing community. Uh, I'm Coach 67 Sports TV. You can follow me at Coach 67 Sports TV on YouTube. All right, go to the channel, subscribe to the channel, like the videos, share the videos, comment in the comment section. You can also follow me at Coach 67 Sports TV on Instagram, on Twitter, and on TikTok. Uh, like I was saying earlier, uh, the school where I teach, I didn't have a team because I didn't have enough players. And this team I came to, they didn't have a coach. So we kind of had a perfect fit for each other. They needed a coach. I needed a team. So I started yesterday as a coach at a new school. Today was our second day of practice.
Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you, bro. And we progress and we stride. The team we playing against a week from yesterday. They had a couple games already, so we kind of behind the eight ball. But we gonna do what we do. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna try our best to make things happen. Now, in terms of this weekend,
What it do, Mr. Shelton?
uh-huh.
I was saying what's up, Mr. Shelton, in the chat.
Oh, all right. What's up, Mr. Shelton? Uh, but like I was saying, I went to the Southern University versus LSU game this weekend. I don't remember. I don't know how many my boxing fans remember when Mayweather fought against Conor McGregor. When McGregor and Mayweather fought, it was like a real big spectacle, like a real event for the individuals that know boxing. They knew that McGregor really didn't have much of a chance to win in that fight. He probably had like a 0% chance of winning. And I'm not gonna say it was the exact same scenario, but it was somewhat similar. Like Southern's chance of winning was slim to none. Uh, the previous week they played against Florida Memorial, and they played way down in competition. But this past week they played against LSU, and they played way up in competition. So all of the issues that LSU faced when they played against Florida State, uh, they really didn't matter against Southern, and all the successes that Southern had against Florida Memorial didn't matter because they were playing way up in competition. So it kind of played out that way. Southern won a toss. Uh, Eric Dooley elected to take the opening kickoff. Southern fumbled the opening kickoff. And when you playing against a opposition that's that much better, that has that much more talent, you can't afford stupid mistakes. So they fumbled the opening kickoff. LSU got the ball. They really didn't do anything on the first two plays, but on the third play, on third and 10, Jaden Daniels ran like 20-some yards for a touchdown, and it kind of was all on here from that point. I think LSU scored on with their first 7 possessions, and before you know, the score was like 44 to nothing. And then thereafter, Southern, like late in the first half, they got a couple drives going. They got the ball deep in the LSU territory, like I'm talking about like deep plus side of the field in the red zone. Like I think the first possession where they drove the ball, because it was a while, I think, like maybe late into the first half. It was late into the first half before Southern got their first down. So they drove the ball deep, and they got to like LSU's 15, and they settled for a Luke Jackson field goal, and of course he missed it. Then thereafter, LSU threw interception. I think they finally put Nussmeier in the game as their backup quarterback. He threw interception. Southern drove the ball to like the 10-yard line, and they ended up settling for another field goal, and Luke Jackson missed another field goal. So they went in the half. The previous week, they was up 56 to nothing against Florida Memorial, and this past week, they was down 51 to nothing at halftime, and the game essentially was over at that point. And then the real show for a lot of people, the halftime show. Southern Band, the Human Jukebox. They did what they do, and LSU performed. Of course, like a band. Comparing Southern's band and LSU band is like comparing apples and oranges. And then at the end of of the halftime show, they had a joint performance where they performed the Cupid Shuffle, and they put Love, the heart sign, 225. That's Baton Rouge's area code. And after that point, it was a mass exodus headed for the exit. And then thereafter, Southern they fought harder in the second half, but by that point, LSU really took their foot off the gas, and they kind of cleared the bench the way Southern did the week before. And Southern showed fight. I like that they showed some grit and some heart. But moving forward for LSU and SEC play, and for Southern and SWAC play, this game kind of has no bearing and no meaning. And really, you can decipher anything from it. But based on what I saw, uh, I think Sims, the running back,
Yes.
it's kind of hard to say exactly what type of back he's going to be. But if I had to kind of compare him to anybody, which is like a difficult comparison, I'll probably say he kind of reminds me of Melvin Williams Jr., which was Southern all-time leading rusher at one point. I think at this point he like Southern's second or third all-time leading rusher. So if he kind of reminds me of any kind of back, is that kind of back where you could throw him the ball out in the flats out the backfield. You could throw him the ball. You could give him the ball like 20 times a game, and he might have like 15 runs where he gets like maybe a couple yards, and then he might have a few long runs. So he's that type of back, that kind of a back. That's what he reminds me of. In terms of Bashawn McCray, he seems like he's a dual threat type of guy. But he kind of reminds me a little bit of Darius Skelton, who was the starter last couple of years at Southern. So that's the kind of vibe I got. I know Deion Lewis, he got a sack, but of course he didn't sack Jay Daniels. He sacked Nelson Meyer, which is LSU's backup quarterback. So for the most part, I mean, there's nothing you really could decipher from the game in terms of based on moving forward for Southern and SWAC, LSU and the SEC. But I mean, more than anything, it was like an extremely big spectacle and event. I mean, traffic was ridiculous, leaving.
I
I
bet
think
it was.
it was a 40-minute walk from the stadium to the car, and we had to wait like an hour and 15 minutes just for traffic to move after the game. And then in addition to that, uh, you know, I've I'm not from Baton Rouge, but I went to Southern. I've been in Baton Rouge most of my life because the rural area I'm from, essentially everything you need to do major, like go to a mall or whatever the case may be, you have to come to Baton Rouge. So I've been around Baton Rouge all my life, and that's the worst I've ever seen traffic in Baton Rouge. Of course, they had the counter Florida traffic, like all throughout downtown Baton Rouge. It took me, I'll probably say, ordinarily it would take me like 35 minutes to get home from Tiger Stadium. It took me like what? Once traffic started moving, it took me maybe like 50, 55 minutes to get home. So, and of course, I'm certain if you have business in downtown Baton some money, you had like a club or a borough, restaurant, give me a lot of money downtown Baton Rouge, a lot of money time. So more than anything, in addition to just, it's kind of being uh like I said, more compared to with a portion of that
You couldn't out,
all
coach.
shapes.
You back now.
Huh?
You back now.
Say that again?
I said you was
You
cutting
said I was
out, but
cutting
you
it
back
out?
now.
Oh, all right, all right. So, like I said, more than anything, this past weekend it was a spectacle. It was an event. Uh, more so than the football game, it was just a big sporting event. Like I said, comparable to Mayweather versus McGregor. Uh, you know, all the restaurants and bars and clubs downtown Baton Rouge, they made a lot of money this past weekend.
I bet one of Louisiana's favorite HBCUs and favorite Power Five schools going against each other, even though everyone knew who was going to win. I'm sure that drew a lot of people and a lot of that, like we was talking about offline, that area probably generated a lot of money, right?
Oh, a ridiculous amount of money this weekend. Like I said, I'm not from Baton Rouge, but where I grew up, it's only like 50, 55, 60 minutes away from Baton Rouge. Anything major you need to do, you have to come to Baton Rouge to do it, to go to the mall or whatever the case may be. And I've never seen that much traffic in Baton Rouge in my entire life. So, traffic had to counter flow one way. You couldn't go in the other direction. All the traffic went in one direction. It took a long time to get home. For like a 40-minute walk from the stadium to the car. We waited in the parking lot just for traffic to move for over an hour. So it was like, it was a real spectacle. It was a real event. And the thing about it is, LSU is the flagship university in the state of Louisiana. I don't care what part of Louisiana you're from, whether you're from South Louisiana, Northern Louisiana, Central Louisiana. Most people went to LSU. Now, of course, a lot of people that went to HBCU, they might have went to Southern or Grambling, but even if you're in the northern part of the state, anytime you go, they talk about the sports. You watch the news, they cover sports. They're gonna talk about LSU. I mean, outside of the same, they're gonna talk about LSU more than any other team. So, uh, so of course, you was gonna have a huge crowd. And I went when LSU played ULM last year, and of course, they're not Louisiana team. They are division FBS school, but they didn't garner nearly the amount of attention that this particular game generated. Even though it was a much more competitive game, I mean, it was a lot of interest in it. In fact, I don't know if have you ever been in Bayou Classic, bro?
No, sir.
All right, if for anybody that's been in a Bayou Classic, it probably was that type of feel, that type of atmosphere times two. Because, of course, Bayou Classic, the people that spectators, they like 90% probably 98%, 97% black. But of course, in this particular situation, you got to mix. You got a lot of people that went to LSU, a lot of people that went to Southern, and of course, the common color for both schools are gold. So you didn't see as many people wearing gold. If you're an LSU fan, most of those wore purple. Purple. Most of the Southern fans wore like Columbia blue or royal blue. So for a lot of people that was on either side, they made the battle line drawn like, hey, I'm an LSU fan, I'm a Southern fan. But more than anything, it was like a real spectacle. It was an event. I mean, it was something to see. You know, I mean, the game wasn't competitive at no point, but like I said, it was an amazing event.
Yes, sir. And just picking up back with your mind, Gerard Sims. Um, Even though Natron Means is before my time a little bit, he did kind of remind me just watching YouTube videos of highlights of a taller Natron Means, and he 15 carries for 79 yards against a Division I defense, even though they're not the defense of old, um, compared to the other LSU defenses. I would say that's pretty good, right, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, he did well, but I think I would have to disagree with you from the standpoint. I mean, he played well, but in terms of the comparison, I don't think that's a accurate comparison. I think a more accurate comparison, if I'm just going by Southern running backs, I would probably say he reminds me of Melvin Williams. But if I had to compare him to an NFL running back, it's kind of hard. He's not dynamic enough to be like a Adrian Peterson or Leonard Fournette. I know he probably before your time, Fred Taylor. But in terms of like Southern,
I can see it. I can see
uh,
that. I can see that.
yeah. Well, see, that's the thing about it. They say he is like. I mean, from what I see, kind of like Mel Williams when in his heyday. Mel Williams was like a big power back. He was only like 5'11", 5'10", like 190, 195. I mean, he wasn't going to run over a lot of people, but he broke a lot of arm tackles. And then in addition to that, he would give you that long run, like, that 50, 60, 70-yard run. And I think Gerard Sims is kind of being, put in that kind of like light in terms of, he's not a power back to where he's going to run over a lot of people, but you're definitely not going to bring him down with an arm tackle. And a lot of times one defender's not going to bring him down, but when he gets in the open field, he can give you that long run. And I think the thing that really kind of took away from what he could do last year was the fact that he was constantly injured. So, Ben was the bell cow for Southern for the last few years, but the fact that he took Ben's starting running back spot last year, it kind of speaks to like the caliber back that he is and how Southern coaches viewed him last year. So they view him in high regard for him to beat out a veteran guy like that. And, just based on what I saw, like I said, a lot like Melvin Williams, you could throw him the ball in the flats out the backfield. Or if not, you could give him a zone read and he can run between the tackles and give you, with the inside zone, he could give you, a good 5, 6, 7 yards of pop, when things are going good. So he played well. He was kind of one of the bright spots. And I know you didn't ask about him yet, but Bashawn McCray, he kind of reminds me of Ladarius Skelton in terms of that dual threat quarterback, but I think he's kind of more the athlete like Skelton was as opposed to a pocket passer like maybe like a Austin Howard or a Brian Lee type of guy. He's kind of more the athletic like run type guy.
Well, Southern running backs better than I do, so I have no choice but definitely to agree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to kind of give you a modern day NFL comparison, uh, let me see who I compare it to. I can't say Adrian Peterson because I don't think he's that dynamic. You know, he's not extremely powerful and extremely fast. Because if I had to compare Adrian Peterson to anybody, kind of be like a Bo Jackson type back. He's not that dynamic, but I don't know if you remember the Saints running back named Chris Ivory from a few years back. He's kind of that type of guy where he's got a little bit of power, but if you get in the open field, he could
I
take you to
remember
the house.
Chris Ivory.
Huh?
I remember Chris Ivory. Yes, sir.
Yeah. He's that kind of back where he's not. I don't think he's as powerful as Chris Ivory, but he could break tackles the way Ivory did, and if he get an open field, he can kind of take it to the house. Now, I think he's faster than Ivory was, but he's kind of that kind of back. I'm not gonna say Kamara either because he's not that dynamic. Even though that's kind of somewhat of an accurate comparison because just like Alvin Kamara, he can catch the ball at the backfield. You know, he can block. He's strong like Kamara. So I'll probably say that's an accurate comparison also. You know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just want to change to the conversation to another team.
Uh-huh.
Um, in the MEAC, North Carolina Central, they are 2-0 right now. They are number one in the MEAC right now. Normally it's North Carolina A&T, but that is not the case anymore. Delaware State is second, 1-1. South Carolina State is 1-1. Norfolk State is 0-2. Morgan State is 0-2, and Howard is 0-3. Now, when it comes to the SWAC on the East Conference, Jackson State is, of course, 2-0. Alabama State is 2-1. Alabama A&M is 0-2. Mississippi Valley State is 0-2. Bethune-Cookman is 0-2 right now. Florida A&M is 1-2. That's for the East. Now for the West Conference of the SWAC, Fairview A&M is 1-1. Southern 1-1. Grambling State 1-1. Arkansas Pine Bluff is 1-1. Alcorn State 0-2, and Texas Southern is 0-2. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we know it is very early in the season of college football, especially HBCU or Power 5. But given my opinion, Jackson State is looking strong, which you see the title of the show today is Jackson State. Basically, are they not better? Are they better than what they advertise, or people are blowing smoke up their backside? What's your opinion, Coach? Because when I was watching and before you get into it, when I was watching the game live, somebody on YouTube was kind enough to put the game because you couldn't find it nowhere on TV. Somebody was kind enough to put it on YouTube, and it seemed like everybody was when Jackson State was making a mistake. The line wasn't blocking. One of the wide receivers dropped the ball, or they're not that good. If the running backs wasn't breaking a 10-yard gain, they're not good, like we said. But I've seen a lot of positives. But is it the case, Coach? I guess what I'm asking is it seems like there's a lot of people that are waiting to see the downfall of Jackson State because they're tired of the hype train. What's your opinion?
My opinion is the fact that, I was at the game when LSU was playing against Southern, and when I saw the score come across the scoreboard, I was shocked because I'm going to be truthful. I thought, for the game, is another HBCU they're playing. I thought, well, hey, Jackson State is going to smack Tennessee State, and it's not going to be a competitive game. And I take that back. My friend, one of my coaching friends, he texted me the score, and I was shocked. And then I saw it come across the scoreboard in Tiger Stadium, and I was like, oh my goodness, I expected a blowout, to be truthful. So when I saw the score, I was kind of shocked. And to be truthful, it's too early to tell who is what in the season. In some instances, that team might maybe just got up for you, or maybe you might have had an off day or off, game or whatever the case may be. So it's too early to tell. I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in it one way or the other. But for people to say, well, hey, Jackson State is not as good as advertised, I think it's entirely too early to say that. And not only that, but Tennessee State might be better than people think they are. You know what I'm saying? So that's my take on it. I mean, I don't. It's entirely too early to read anything into anything, because guess what? For all we know, J State could go undefeated and never lose a game this entire season. Or they could do that, and Tennessee State might not lose another game the rest of the season. So it's too early to tell, bro. People. You know, we live in a day and age where people just live in the here and now with this microwave society that we live in,
Yes,
and it's
sir.
just kind of more instant and immediate results. Like whatever happened today is the greatest thing ever. So it's just kind of too early to tell. I wouldn't put too much stock in it one way or the other. Maybe Tennessee State is a pretty good team, or maybe J State just had an off day at the office. It could be either or. But I don't read too much into it.
Thank you, Coach, for that, and I wholeheartedly agree. Um, I didn't think it was going to be a blowout. Of course, I picked Jackson State to win, but I knew, Coach, if those of you that don't know, Hall of Fame running back Eddie George is the coach of Tennessee State, and I kind of knew he was going to have them boys ready to play. He wasn't going to have them laid down because it's Jackson State and Coach Prime, and they recruited Travis Hunter and so on and so forth. I knew that was going to happen, so I knew that I was impressed by the D line was getting pressured, linebackers were hitting. Did you see that Shedeur Sanders got smacked? It was a beautiful tackle.
Yeah, actually, yeah,
It
actually,
was
I
excellent.
saw a couple clips on YouTube. I don't know if it's clips that they posted after the fact or whatever, because I tried looking at it again last night. I couldn't find it. So I don't know if maybe they had some kind of copyright strike or whatever the issue was. But I saw it. I saw a clip at one point, and from what I saw, yeah, he did. He got smacked pretty good. They showed a couple highlights. I wasn't able to see as much as I wanted because I wanted to see the game in its entirety. But of course, it was a conflict from a timing standpoint because I you know outside of a few games like maybe like Alabama and Texas, I didn't, and maybe I think I told you I saw some of South Carolina and I can't remember who they played. I didn't get to see as much football this weekend. I'm not talking about in terms of college football on Saturday because the LSU Southern game it pretty much occupied like most of my day, and I just kind of saw highlights and stuff after the fact.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, somebody had posted it. I think my brother showed it to me on Twitter. It was because that person was at the game live, and it was a nasty hit. So they wasn't scared or intimidated by Jackson State whatsoever. Even though they lost, the defense mainly came to play. But like I said, the title of the show was "Is JSU overrated?" And me and Coach's answer is too early to tell.
Yeah, it's too early to tell.
Too early to tell. But like you said, man, it's a microwave generation. A lot of clout chasers out here. People waiting to see your downfall. So um, don't get us wrong. We are not on the JSU bandwagon per se. We love HBCU football. Not taking up for JSU. Even though we want to see all the HBCU teams win, but like we just discussed, it's too early to tell. Um, Another thing I want to discuss is, Coach, what's going on with North Carolina A&T? Usually they're pretty. You think they bit more than often what they can chew?
You cut out for a second, bro. Ask that question again.
Did you what's going on with North Carolina A&T? Do you think they bit off more than they could chew going into the Big South Conference instead of staying in the MEAC?
Yes, I think they did. The reason being because I don't know if y'all know FAMU. FAMU did the same thing like a few years back. And when you try to break away from your HBCU conference and you try to step up and play the big boys, like you don't have the type of resources they have. You're not generating the same amount of money that they generate. Uh, and not only that, but you don't have the same amount of scholarships. You don't have, it's like comparing apples and oranges. That's like the day of tomorrow. I'm not even gonna say the SEC. Just say Southern wanted to break away from the SWAC, or even J State or Grambling or whoever. They wanted to break away from the SWAC, and just say they wanted to join the Mountain West. Uh, whatever conference. Like jumping from, you know, a SWAC or MEAC conference, even to another FCS conference. Depending on the situation, it's gonna be different. It's like comparing apples to oranges. Even if just say J State didn't want to play in the Celebration Bowl, just say they wanted to play in the one AA playoffs or the FCS playoffs. I mean, even that is kind of a step up in competition, just to be truthful. Because I remember, I don't know if y'all remember the late great Steve Air McNair. When he played for Alcorn and they went to the one AA playoffs, they played well in SWAC play, even when they played against other HBCUs. But when they got into the one AA playoffs, like they lost in the first round, and they got blown out. I mean, he played well, but he had a few interceptions in that game, either 2 or 3 interceptions, and it was a blowout. So, when you're playing against the bigger FCS programs, or when you're playing against FBS programs as an HBCU, like you at a competitive disadvantage. And I know a lot of people say, well, hey, when you're playing against those bigger programs, is a litmus test to how good your program is, or we don't see where we stand. But I'm a proponent of, like, we don't have anything to prove to the bigger schools. I'm a proponent of SWAC and MEAC schools playing against each other, because I'd rather play in maybe like a Celebration Bowl or a SWAC MEAC challenge, or even just a regular like Southern versus Howard or Hampton type game, or J State against I don't know, J State against North Carolina Central. I'm a proponent of that type of game as opposed to maybe J State against a Utah, or J State against Utah State or San Jose State or whatever.
And how things going, that might happen for the Celebration Bowl. North Carolina Central versus Jackson State.
Again, I think it's too early to tell.
Of course, but that's my I'm gonna throw my hat in there. I could be wrong, could be eating a whole bunch of crow come in the season, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, well, kind of touching on North Carolina Central. I mean, I don't know if you know, bro, but North Carolina Central's head coach Dawson Nobles, he used to be the head coach for Southern. And he really didn't get the full like support. I don't know if you know Southern's fan base. Southern's fan base is kind of like the equivalent to maybe like if you was compared to like a Power Five type program, like Notre Dame, Texas, uh, maybe even Nebraska, like one of those schools that's like prestigious, and they have like a lot of tradition surrounding them, but like they not content with mediocrity. If Southern like came second in SWAC and they only lost 1 or 2 games, the Southern's fan base would not be content. And the fact that Dawson Nobles, he's really from that area, the fan base never was really sold on him like they sold on Eric Dooley. And and not only that, but he recruited. Where he's recruiting now, he recruited that area well because he's from that area. So I'm not shocked that they're 2-0. Odoms is a good coach. I think the only thing that really kind of got me, I'm more of an offensive minded coach. He's a defensive minded coach, and he's very conservative. So I think at times he's a little bit too conservative. But despite what people say, he was a good coach at Southern, and many people, even though he's not from Baton Rouge and he's not from that Pete Richardson Southern tree, a lot of people wanted him to stay at Southern, and they didn't want him to get away and go to North Carolina Central. So I'm not surprised he's doing, a good job where he is.
I think he's in Norfolk State.
I'm sorry. He's at. Oh, all right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's at Norfolk. Cause and you're so right, Coach. I was so surprised when Dawson Odoms got fired because you remember them Southern teams versus Devontae Kincaid when he was at Grambling? Those was very competitive teams.
And I mean, I'm gonna be truthful. I mean, his Achilles heel in those years were essentially Alcorn State and Grambling. I mean, that was the two things. He couldn't get over the Grambling hurdle when he had Kincaid, and then because I'm gonna be honest with you, you take away Kincaid and you take away Alcorn State. I mean, Dawson Odoms probably win about maybe 5 SWAC championships instead of one. I mean, he had the one where they beat J State in Texas, but outside of that, he got. That's one thing people really was upset about. They were like, man, hey, he couldn't win a big game. He couldn't get over the hump, but he got you in the championship game or you was in title contention every year by letting him go. And I mean, essentially, all they gave him was 40,000 more than what Southern was giving him. It's like, why would you let him go? But eventually, it worked out in a. Well, it's too early to tell still, but they ended up getting Eric Dooley. Somebody that's off that Pete Richardson coaching tree. So we'll see how things play out. But I mean, in terms of the MEAC, when you say North Carolina Central was at the top, I'm not gonna lie, bro. I was shocked because, if you'd have told me going into the year, I mean, even though I guess I'm kind of stuck in the past with the Howards and the Hamptons and those type of teams, even though they really haven't been what they were in yesteryear. I'm kind of used to those type of teams being at the top of the MEAC standings. Whether it's South Carolina State or North Carolina A&T or Howard or Hampton. I'm used to those teams being at the top. So when you told me North Carolina Central, I'm like, wow. Because even when they played, I saw them play a couple weeks ago. I was impressed by the way they played.
Yes, sir. Yeah, they were very impressive, and like you said, it's too early to tell. I'm picking North Carolina Central, but South Carolina State with that 6'5" receiver they got, Shaquan Davis, can come out of nowhere and start taking over the MEAC. Or Dawson Odoms will get them Norfolk boys down there playing ball, and they surprise it. That's why we love SWAC HBCU football. You can't tell.
Yeah, I mean,
Hugh Jackson can get them boys at Grambling. Them G-men ready and take on everybody and their mama in the SWAC. So you never know. Including Coach Prime. Can never know, man. So you're definitely right. Definitely too early. But it ain't gonna stop us from talking though.
Yeah, and I mean, one other thing I want to point out too, bro. I don't mean to just jump in like that, but some of these teams are maybe one injury away from being like a elite caliber team, or maybe being in the middle of the pack, or maybe even bottom of the pack. So in some instances, it can only be one injury away, from being, a contender to a pretender. So I mean, it could be one injury, one key player, because, the quarterback. I don't care on what level, whether you're talking about NFL, whether you're talking about college football, high school football. If you have like a quarterback that really could carry your team, if that guy gets hurt, I mean, hey, some of the entirely different story. So, I mean, that goes for J State, for Southern, for Grambling, for Prairie View, for Alcorn. I mean, basically for all the SWAC schools, all the MEAC schools, and just teams all across football on all levels. You one injury away.
Like you said, like the difference between HB, like we said in our last show, the difference between HBCU schools and versus Power Fives is the depth. Like as you saw, like you were saying, McCray. I saw McCray get a couple of first down against the LSU defense, but LSU had a couple of 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars on that defense that was ready to shut that down, and Southern just ain't have that. Like, don't get me wrong, the boys are athletes and talented, but they're not LSU.
And just kind of reiterate that what you in terms of what you're saying. I mean, the first touchdown that LSU got. I mean, Jaden Daniels, he was surrounded, and when he took off and he started running, it was like he was just outrunning. He literally outran every Southern player that had him boxed into the end zone. I mean, don't get me wrong, like they weren't like within like 2 or 3 yards of him, but he still was boxed in. In that instance, you think he would just take off and just run right up the middle, but he didn't. He basically he bounced it outside. He just took it to the house. So it's like wow. So the caliber athlete, it was obvious, and of course the depth was obvious also. So those elite caliber athletes that LSU had, and in addition to that, just the depth. You could see it is because I left it after halftime, but I went back and I watched the rest of the game, and you could see just by the way they were running the ball, like, hey, Southern is kind of, they fatiguing a little bit. Even though they kept fighting, you could see that LSU has a lot more depth than Southern has.
Yes, sir. A lot more depth. And I was watching 2 FCS schools, one HBCU, one FCS powerhouse, which in my opinion should be in the FBS. North Carolina A&T versus North
And
Dakota
you could definitely see the
State.
difference.
Now, some people will say, well, there's no excuse. Those 2 FCS programs. There's those two big difference because North Dakota State had what out a couple of years had numerous draft picks on both sides of the ball, mainly quarterback, drafted to the NFL.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're dealing with reputation and recruiting and money, and so it's very big difference. And that's where a lot of alumni and a lot of these HBCUs need to get their head out their backside, man, and do these kids right.
And that's one thing I want to point out, bro. Like, people don't understand, like, even if you look at like you say, like a North Dakota State, like it's like from what I understand, that they really kind of like a FCS school in terms of the type of support they get, and in terms of
Yes,
the
my point. Yes,
resources
sir.
they have at their disposal. So like all of those things really make a difference.
Big difference. Like I said, with Trey Lance, I'm blanking on he been quarterback for the Eagles. He was drafted to the Eagles.
Oh, you talking about well, he was playing for the Eagles. I think he plays for Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz. They just had a wide receiver drafted, Christian Watson. My Baltimore Ravens had one of their linebackers. We had him for 3 years, Chris Board. So there was a lot of defensive and offensive players drafted from North Dakota State and in a less than 1 to 2 years, a lot. Versus
Yeah, I mean,
HBCUs, they may get somebody drafted in 6th, 7th round, or somebody put on the practice squad.
and I
So the
mean,
level of talent is as far as depth is big difference. Go ahead, coach.
yeah, and I didn't mean to cut you off, bro. And that makes a huge difference. I'll give you an example. I don't know if you know Dwight Freeney that played for
The Colts.
for the Colts. His senior year, because I don't know if you know, he went to Texas. He went to Alabama A&M, right? They won the SWAC championship his senior year. That was Quincy Richard's junior year.
I think you got the wrong one, Coach. I think you're talking about Robert Mathis.
Oh no, that's what I said. Which one I said, bro?
You said Dwight Freeney.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You good?
Well, him and Dwight Freeney played together for the Colts.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, no, that's what I'm saying. I want to say because I always tie the two of them together because, as a coach, I always wanted to have two bookends, like when he lead pass rush on one end and when he lead pass rush on the other end. Well, anyway, Robert Mathis played for Alabama A&M, right? He had 20 sacks his senior year, and I saw quite a few of the games he played in. And bro, I'm gonna be honest with you. If you'd have told me that he was gonna be, a third round pick, I think he was drafted in the third round by the Colts. In addition to that, if you'd have told me that he'd have played as long as he played in the NFL, I wouldn't have known. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes, you don't know what these swag players, like what they're gonna become, whether it's like kind of hit or miss. It's kind of like, the comparative is kind of like the NBA draft, where a guy that's the number one pick, you don't know what he's gonna pan out, you don't know what he's gonna be. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing. If you'd have told me Mathis was gonna play as long as he played, and that he was gonna be on the opposite side of Freeney, he was gonna make multiple Pro Bowls and that type of thing, I didn't know. The only swag player I was kind of ever certain, he gonna get drafted, he gonna have a long career, was Steve McNair. But outside of that, it's good as I've seen some good swag players, and you never know. It's really hard to tell,
Really hard to tell, but nowadays how athletic these boys are, it's easier to tell, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I think somebody like Travis Hunter, I think he's kind of a game changer. He's a 5-star, and he gonna get, probably a lot of special treatment or individualized attention that he probably wouldn't have got had he went to a Power 5. But outside of that, it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, it's very hard to tell, but that's why, you have to take chances because there's a lot of players. Look at Brady Quinn. Look at Josh Rosen. And you tell me Devontae Kincaid couldn't be on an NFL roster?
Yeah, to me, I think that was the biggest travesty because I'm gonna be honest with you. If you take him and Montez Carter off of those three Grambling teams, Southern probably beat those three teams easy.
Yeah.
He was those two guys were the ultimate X factor on those teams. Because you take away those two, I'm not gonna
Don't forget Williams. He was drafted the wide receiver that Kincaid was throwing to. He was drafted to the Cardinals in the 3rd or 4th round.
Oh no! I'm not taking away from this, but this is the point I'm trying to make. I don't think he would have mattered as much if he didn't have a quarterback that's elite like that and a running back that's elite like, because the offensive line, people don't realize, Grambling offensive line was not that good in those.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't.
I remember one play. I don't know if Kincaid got hurt or something happened, whatever. It was something minor, and some kind of way maybe Carter ran the ball a lot. He came out the game. That one play, they didn't even look like the same team.
Oh, you talking about the Arizona when they almost upset Arizona?
No. This was the Bayou Classic one year.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't look like the same team because. So it kind of go to show you in terms of like how athletic he was. The two of them were. It kind of made up for how deficient that the offensive line was at that time. And the crazy thing about it over the years, because I don't know if you ever been in Grambling, Louisiana. It's a rural area in North Louisiana, but the offensive line play is usually great. And in those years, they were kind of like average at best.
It's funny you said that. I have been to Grambling, Louisiana. Matter of fact, I was thinking about going to Grambling.
Really?
Yes, sir.
All right.
but like you said, and a lot of not just Kincaid, but a lot of NFL players who play HBCU or former HBCU players who've played at HBCU programs will tell you the big difference is the O line.
O
Even
line.
Coach Prime said it recently in an interview a couple of months back, when he was asked, "When are you going to play the Alabamas?" And you sent me that video, which I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it, Coach. And and I give all props to Coach Prime. He was honest. He said, "Give me a few more years, because those Power Five boys, they at them programs for a reason. you know, they're there for a reason. The mall block for uh 5-star quarterbacks, and you're going against Southern, a Graham, and you put HBCU squad who basically has to um, the last of the pickings, in my opinion, after the Power Five programs and not just the Power Five, the Powerhouse FCS programs. After they're done with the best of the recruiting talent around the nation, the HBCUs have to basically scrape the bottom of the barrel. But why a lot of people are is liking what Coach Prime is doing is he's bringing a Power Five mindset as far as recruiting to an HBCU, which you can which was back in the day before everything was integrated. We had that mindset. That's where you got the sweetness, Walter Payton. That's where you got a lot of Hall of Fame Jerry
Jerry
Rice,
Rice. Yeah.
Mel Blunt, all the ballers back in the 60s and 70s went to HBCUs. But it's not like that anymore. After Bear Bryant, I think Bear Bryant and the coach from Penn State uh, started recruiting blacks. It was all she wrote.
Yeah. And then, like you said, the integration aspect of it too, because I mean, you know, even though people know him more as a wrestler, you look at somebody like Ernie Ladd, like there was so many like elite caliber players, especially at Grambling. You know, that's why even though he coached for Grambling for years, people don't realize he went to Southern, but that's another story. But Coach Rob, Coach Rob was a game changer because he got so many like elite level talent players to come to Grambling over the years, and even though they are like chief rival, like you got to give Coach Rob props, and you got to give Grambling in terms of being like that gold standard initially in terms of driving football in HBCUs, because for years, because in fact, one of the schools I worked at some years ago, we had a one of my former coaches, coworkers, he went to Grambling, and he was saying like even in the early '80s, they would, they played all over the place. He said they went to Hawaii and they played against the University of Hawaii. So, and of course, he eventually he didn't want in the NFL, but he was saying that even like in years prior to that, like they would go, Coach Rob would go play a team, and then on the way back, you know, they would play another team. So people don't realize that's the reason why he had so many wins because of that, and then of course the level of talent he had also. So for years, Brown was that gold standard in terms of getting that caliber athlete, pre-integration. But like you say, once integration happened, and Bear Bryant, he was one of the last holdouts to like, hey, we're not getting black players, and then eventually they played some teams that had black players, and and I don't know, you would have to Google it. He said basically take one to catch one. They kind of showed him like, hey, these These are the blue chip caliber players, and once they start recruiting those caliber players, it was a game changer because those guys realize, hey, our best chance of making it to the league is through a Power Five.
Yes, sir. Once they found that out, I mean, it was as far as HBCUs getting uh, um, the high level of talent, the 5 star. It was over. As far as on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
Well, coach, as far as in the NFL, because we just don't we talk about the NFL a little bit. Which team? What do you think about the week 2? Excuse me, week 1 of the
You
NFL
cut out.
season.
What do you mean?
So far, what did you
Right,
think
week one
about week 1?
NFL. I
Yes,
watch a
sir.
lot of NFL. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, what I was saying is, I saw a lot of NFL football. Uh, of course, I kind of have to start out with the home team. I'm a huge Saints fan. They played against the Falcons this weekend. I was with the offensive line. My concern going into the season was Jameis Winston. He won a Heisman Trophy. I think he's a franchise caliber quarterback in terms of talent. Maybe not like top 5, like maybe a Brady, maybe a Mahomes. He's not on that, but I think he's a playoff. He can get you to playoffs. He's a playoff caliber quarterback. But being that he got hurt last year, he was out for the rest of the year. My concern with him is he become injury prone. Alvin Kamara, uh, Uh, we told Loomis in addition to that, uh, on the defensive side, the Saints traded they starting strong safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson to the Eagles for practically nothing. So I was kind of disappointed with that because they couldn't come to terms on a contract extension. So they traded C.J. Gardner-Johnson to the Eagles for like a fifth and a sixth round pick, and they also sent the Eagles a 7th round pick, which was stupid to me. So they couldn't come to terms on extension. Instead of just franchise tagging him, they traded him. And I was unimpressed with the Saints defense. Uh, During the offseason, they let go. Their best linebacker is Demario Davis, but their second best linebacker, at least in my opinion, was Kwan Alexander. He played at LSU. He played for the 49ers. He was injury prone, but when he's healthy, like he's a very athletic outside linebacker, they let him go. So they linebacking core with Caden Ellis and Pete Warner, which to me he kind of like a strong safety type. He really not a linebacker. I was unimpressed with they linebacking core. They secondary since they got rid of Gardner Johnson. Teron Matthew, he played for LSU, but he's kind of undersized. Lattimore, he's a good cornerback, but he gets a lot of penalties. So their defense was unimpressive. Their offensive line was very unimpressive. They struggled most of the game, but they pulled a win out in the end. In terms of just the best teams in the NFL, I was impressed with the Chiefs. Pat Mahomes, with the loss of Tyreek Hill, he played well. Tyreek Hill going to the Dolphins, he played well. The other night the Broncos and the Seahawks. People thought, with the addition of uh, Russell Wilson to the Broncos, they're instant Super Bowl contender. But the Seahawks played well. In quite a few instances, at least a couple times, they got deep into Seahawks territory and they came away with, I think, 3 possessions. They came away with 3 points in the red zone, like deep into the red zone. So the Seahawks, maybe their defense back to what it was. I don't think it's quite Legion of Boom level, but they back. And Geno Smith, he played well. I was pleasantly surprised by him. Of course, the feature game was the Bucks against the Cowboys. Uh, I was unimpressed with the Cowboys, and then of course, a franchise quarterback He hurt again.
That,
Dak
oh,
Prescott. Dak is often hurt. So Dak is hurt again. He's gonna be out 4 to 8 weeks, they said. And of course, the Saints play against the Bucs this coming week. Brady, he looked sharp. I thought he was gonna, because allegedly, him and Giselle, they having like marriage issues. She was upset that he came out of retirement and he continued this. He decided to resume his NFL career. Supposedly, she was upset by that, and they were having issues, and she left him or whatever the case may be. I don't know if they patched things up or if they headed to divorce, whatever the case may be. I don't know, but I thought maybe that would affect his play because I don't know. Other people know sometimes personal life issues. Real life could kind of hamper your performance on your job. But he was a pro. He went out there. He played well. So I'll probably say the two teams I really was impressed with the most this weekend. I'll probably say the Bucks and the Kansas City Chiefs. I was impressed. Oh,
just fine.
one other team, the Buffalo Bills. They really handed it to the defending Super Bowl champs, the LA Rams. They really gave it to them. So those three teams, I'll probably say the teams I was impressed with the most. I think it's a winnable game for the Saints when they play against the Bucks this coming Sunday. But we just kind of remains to be seen. But those were like my major takeaways from this past weekend, week one of NFL. It was a lot of good football. And one other thing too. Hey, the Vikings were pretty impressive against the Packers. I was surprised by that.
Yeah, I was surprised about it. You think Aaron Rodgers bit off more than he can chew coming back? Think he's just
Well,
going to hang it up? Or
I don't think
everybody can't be like Tom Brady.
I don't think so, bro. That's why I said it because last year, week one, my Saints played against the Packers, and of course, I talked about C.J. Gardner Johnson earlier. They
Right.
traded him, but at the time, Davenport was healthy because Davin, Marcus Davenport, Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, C.J. Gardner Johnson. They kind of were like the four. Oh, and Kwan Alexander and Lattimore in terms of the secondary. They were like the key component players for the Saints. Yeah, David Ayumata also defensive tackle. Outside of those guys, they were like the main players for the Saints. For the exception of Ayumata, all of those guys played in that game last year against the Packers. And bruh, the Packers offense looked terrible. The Saints defense just went out and they gave Aaron Rodgers fits. They lit him up. He was under constant pressure, constant arrest. The Saints defense played fast. Week one, he was just. And then after that, guess what? The rest of the season, he just clicking on all cylinders. So, like I said, with Southern and J State and just all across football, it's too early to tell. Because week one
Yes.
he struggled. Week one he struggled last year, and he had a great season last year. So it's too early to tell.
Well, coach, as long as football going on, we're gonna keep running our mouth and giving our hypothesis, our educated guesses. So, um, I hate to be try not to be biased. My Ravens, in my opinion, look great, but I kind of have to give a big F to our front office as far as protecting Lamar because they signed Jawan James, who has been out of football for almost 2 years. We signed him last year. He was trying to recover from Achilles injury. Played this past Sunday, got injured, and guess what the injury was?
What the injury was?
Achilles injury again. So he's
Oh,
out for the year. So we had to slide our backup guard / center to left tackle, Patrick McCarry, which he held up good. That's how versatile he is. He's just a good overall offensive lineman. Uh, Moses, former Jet and now the Commander, former Jet and Commander, he held up pretty well. Tyler Lindenbaum, we got in the red zone by the goal line, and he got ragdolled by Quentin Williams. But after that, he got it together, and Tyler Lindenbaum was our first round pick from Iowa. But one of the biggest knocks on him was him being undersized, but that wrestling background, um, because of leverage and getting under um, the guy, no matter how big they are. I see he uses that. He got very good feet and he's very quick. So after he had his welcome to the NFL moment, he tightened up. So that was a plus. But just wrapping up, talk about because I'm not gonna spend our last moments talking about my Ravens. Um, Greg Roman needs to be more creative, or I don't see him making it to um, the middle of the season because I think other teams will figure us out and end up beating us as far as the offensive scheme, wide receiver routes. As Lamar threw for over 200 yards, um, two to three touchdowns, I think Lamar played good for just checking out the cobwebs. He played good.
He,
We
he
need to go
played
ahead and
well.
stop. Yeah,
Now
he
I'm gonna
played
ask you this
very well.
quick question, bro. I don't mean to cut. Quick question: do you think the loss of Hollywood Brown hurt? Did it hurt y'all offense at all?
No, three TDs. And no, because I love Hollywood Brown, but he's not we need, like we were discussing, we need like an Anquan Bolton, or we need another Rashad Bateman. What Rashad Bateman did, he's a because homeboy is 5'10", 5'9". Well, I'm talking about Hollywood.
But yeah,
Can blow the top off of defense, but if you in a clutch, we playing against the Chiefs, and you need a wide receiver, not your tight end, to make a catch. I'm sorry. A lot of time, and last year proved it. Hollywood didn't come up in the clutch, and a lot of it has to do with the type of wide receiver he was. And Lamar still ate because Brown was an athlete, no matter what size he is. But in my opinion, of course, a lot of Ravens fans said, "Oh, we because he scored a touchdown," which I wasn't surprised because he back with his old quarterback. But I think what is going to help us move on from Hollywood Brown, to answer your question fully, instead of um, dragging it along, is to get our running game back going. Get our running game and then start throwing it. That's our game. That's Baltimore Raven football. Keep running it down the throat, feed it to the tight end, then have a wide receiver go deep. That's it.
so just to kind of put an exclamation point on what you were saying. So essentially, we just like you were saying last week, the Ravens didn't need a wide receiver that could take the top off the defense, but they need a possession receiver that could kind of keep the chains moving. And that's going to be a
Yes,
big
sir.
body that Lamar could rely on and depend on, in those key critical situations like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, third and
Yes, sir.
six, whatever. All right.
Exactly like a Derek Mason. Yes, sir. But
Yeah.
the Kansas City Chiefs, like I told you, was one of my teams I was impressed with. They did whatever they wanted to that Arizona Cardinals defense. Um, And I think defensively, the Cardinals are misusing Isaiah Simmons. They tried to
You
put
cut off.
him. I was saying, I think that, in my opinion, from what I saw, the Arizona Cardinals defense is misusing Isaiah Simmons.
Oh yeah, yeah, I would agree. I would agree.
That 6'3", 6'4" hybrid, they can play defensive back and linebacker
Yeah,
because Travis Kelce was stunting all over him all game.
yeah. I'm glad that you brought him up because he kind of reminds me of a C.J. Gardner Johnson type player, where you know C.J. Gardner Johnson with his Saints used him. He was like in my system what I call a queen DB. Somebody you can move all over the chessboard because the queen piece can move in any direction and all over the board. So the Saints will put in a slot. They will let him be the nickel back. They put him in strong safety, free safety, the extra, extra DB. I mean the extra linebacker in the box, in the strong safety role. So it sounds like it seems like these similar type players.
Yeah, I think they need to get be more creative with Simmons. Um, but it was just a cheese, man. Cheese was doing what cheese. You can't. It's not gonna be for long before Travis Kelce gets it going. Now they got Smith Schuster. Um, I mean, they just gonna and they got that Justin Ross boy who had the spinal um, medical situation. But if he gets on the field, in my opinion, and he shows his body can last, because the boy can play. I mean, she's gonna be. I mean, me loving defense and me loving the Ravens. I don't care if the Bills, the Ravens, whoever. That's gonna be hard to stop.
And the crazy thing, bro, they didn't miss Tyreek Hill almost at all.
At all, you took exactly what I was about to say. Yes, sir. Not at all.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, he played well for the Dolphins this weekend, but they didn't miss him at all. That's a scary thought.
Because the Chiefs is
Scary.
definitely gonna be a team to be in my. Like I said, like we said, it's too early. It's too early, but they're looking scary right now. They're looking very scary. They got I can't really say much about their defense. Of course, they don't have a top five defense, but they offense do the hard work and they defense do the job. Bend don't break.
And
So
and, and they lost Tyron Matthew to my Saints. So yeah.
yeah, Tyrann Matthew, he was trying to figure everything out. He's gonna be very solid for y'all. He's gonna be very solid, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, my only concern with him is, essentially him. I know that's maybe part of the reason why they got rid of C.J. Gardner Johnson because they similar players, but from a size standpoint, Gardner Johnson is like what 5'10" 5'11". Ron
Yeah,
Matthews like 5'8", 5'9", maybe.
yeah.
I think the size is the kind of I'm concerned about because even though he was like all world at LSU, that size when you stick in tight ends, when you the extra man in the box, you playing in the slot, like that size makes a difference in the NFL.
It does, but I mean, we had the Earl Thomases. Um, Earl Thomas was 5'9", 5'8". He could. He was even if with his bad attitude, he was a jerk, but he knew how to quarterback that defense. And he was a very good ball hawk. So, um, yeah, Matthew may be little, but if you know how to be there when you most need him, that's all that matters.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean I agree with you from that standpoint, but you got to realize the defense that Earl Thomas played in, he had a lot of dogs around him, and he was protected the way they ran their defense. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Teron Matthews, even when he's out in coverage, he's gonna be on an island as opposed to all that cover three. The Seahawks play.
Yeah, you're right. So you think it
So I
may be a
mean,
scheme, not just his size, but you think it may be a scheme issue as well?
well, I mean, it's part of it because you know, I don't know if you remember, the Legion of Boom in their heyday. Like
Yeah,
they played a lot of cover three, but it wasn't just the fact that they played a lot of cover three. I mean, they had a lot of dogs on their defense. Before he was washed up and he came to the Saints. I mean, they had Brandon Browner playing 1/3 of the field. You had Earl Thomas all over the place, and then you had Richard Sherman, and that's not including Bobby Wagner and Bruce Irvin. I mean, they had a lot of dogs on their defense. Don't get me wrong. I think the Saints have some good players, but you know, the Saints, the real shining part of their defense is their defensive line. With Marcus Davenport and Cam Jordan and Shai Tuttle and David Ayumata and Street and Carl Granderson and when they rotate him in, Malcolm Roach and those type of guys. I mean, their defensive line is good, but they're not you know, like all time great defensive line.
and Cam
So,
Chancellor.
huh?
Cam Chancellor.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that defense he played in compared to the Saints defense, the Saints defense got some good players, but it's not like the Legion of Boom, when the Seahawks defense was clicking on all cylinders. They had a lot of good players on the defense.
A lot. A lot.
Yeah.
You had
So
Byron Maxwell in the slot. He wasn't a world beater. You wouldn't put him on uh, Chad Johnson um, or a feature wide receiver, but he was very durable in the slot.
yeah.
But
So I mean, it's the scheme and the players you have around you. So
yeah,
those two things help Earl Thomas a lot.
that's true. That's true. A lot of people said that Richard Sherman, the reason why he was a Pro Bowler is because he was a cover three corner. But when you try to
Man,
switch man to man, he can't cover nobody.
no, but I mean, even if you look at Brandon Brown, right? I mean, I think Pete Carroll saw something in terms of he might be losing a step because he played with them, then he went to the Patriots and they won a Super Bowl. Then he came to the Saints. He played so much cover three in Seattle. I mean, yeah, he played so much cover three in Seattle. Then eventually, when he came to New Orleans, he played in a lot of man to man. And bro, he was getting beat all the time. I mean, he was getting beat like a drum. So after that year with the Saints, you know, that was like the last real payday he had, and he was never the same after that. I mean, I know maybe he lost a step, but I think with his height and the fact that they covered three schemes so much, him and Richard Sherman, they were like a perfect fit. Two bigger corners. They're not as fast, but they could cover a lot of ground with their height, their long arms. They played well, as you could see when Browner and Sherman didn't play in Pete Carroll's cover three scheme. They didn't do as well. You know.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think, but Tyrann Matthews is the type of player if he gets, in my opinion, if he gets in that playbook for you guys down there in New Orleans, he'll be good. Like you said, it's late in the season. Early in the season. So he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be well, or
No,
maybe.
no, no, no. I mean, we're not denying the talent. I think the height kind of. I think if you'd have had him and C.J. Gardner-Johnson in the same defense, along with Lattimore, and if they'd have got K1 back, I think they can pay all of those players from a salary cap standpoint. I think that's why they was willing to part ways with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and they could come to terms on a contract extension. And plus, from what I understand, They was having some locker room issues with CJ because I don't know if you remember the situation when they played against the Bears and that whole situation. I mean, he's been known to be a little fire starter, cause
Oh,
issues
I
on the
heard
field.
about that, but I ain't know the ins and outs of that.
I don't know. I mean, he's a habitual trash talker, and even like a couple of years here in New Orleans in terms of the training camp, had quite a few like skirmishes, with Micah Thomas and different other players for the Saints. So know, I mean, when you have that kind of when you play in a player you can't stand, but when he team, I level you to versatility that kind of took him to the next. He could be an extra, it's in terms of a strong safety, he could be an extra linebacker in the box to play and run support, or if need be, you maybe you could put him in free safety. So they were able to put him in a lot of different positions, and losing him and the level of talent that Tyrann Mathieu have. I mean, even if you compare the Saints defense, maybe to compare it to like the LSU defense he played in when he was in college, like he don't have the same like amount of. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Saints got some good players on the defense side of the ball, but when you got a lot of athletes around you, they was able to use him in his best light. They was able when he was at LSU, they was able to put him in a slot and let him blitz, be an extra man and run support. Oh, they put him way out in space, like playing like 15 yards off the receiver, and he was so fast he was able to just close quick. So even in the NFL, he's played well, but I'm saying when you don't have the amount of athletes around him that he had at LSU, and from a schematic standpoint, he's gonna have to do more since CJ Gardner Johnson is gone. I think, I'm confident he could do his thing, he could hold his own, but I think when you get up against a team like maybe that has like a Travis Kelsey type player, if Gronk ever comes back to the Bucks, when you play against those type of players, you're gonna rely on him to cover those guys. That might be a tall task for him to handle.
Yeah, it definitely might be, but one way to find out. Season is still very young, so we
Yeah,
definitely
it's only
going to be very
it's,
exciting to see or find out.
yeah.
All right, Coach. Well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this show up. Um, anything you want to say before we leave?
All right, my closing thoughts again. Salute to the amazing LDBC Lions Den boxing community. Y'all, I'm Coach 67 Sports TV. You can follow me, Coach 67 Sports TV on YouTube. Go to my channel, subscribe to the channel, like the videos, share the videos, comment in the comment section. And you can also follow me on Coach 67 Sports TV on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok. Salute. Y'all have a blessed and phenomenal evening. And I'll catch y'all when we do this again next week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I second that. Y'all have a blessed day. Salute to the mighty LDBC. God bless you all. Be safe out here. We'll catch y'all next week. Have a good day.